Wargotz, you're free to proceed.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Parks and Shade Tree Commission meeting of the City of Rehoboth Beach. This is a live-streamed virtual meeting due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and the meeting is held under the authority issued by Governor John C. Kearney through proclamation number 17-3292. Let's take a roll call. My name is Eric Wargotz. I'm chairman of the committee. Is Commissioner Marcia Maldiz with us today?
Present.
Is Commissioner Ned Kesmodo with us?
Here.
Is Commissioner Rachel Macho with us?
Present.
In addition, as part of the commission, we also have our advisor, City Solicitor Glenn Mendelis. Is he with us today?
Hi, everybody.
Very good. So, Anne, good morning. Do we have any correspondence?
There is no correspondence.
Okay, and just as an aside at this point, do we have anyone signed up ahead of time for the to speak at either public hearing?
Yes, we do. We have Jeff Meredith. He's a representative of both cases, and we have the property owners for each particular case.
Very good. Any other members of the public that are not applicants or representatives of applicants?
Not that I know of.
Okay. Thank you very much. We have minutes before us, commissioners, for the meeting held June 22nd, 2020. Is there a motion to accept?
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Pardon me?
I'll second it.
Okay. Is there any discussion, any edits, deletions, whatever?
No.
Any discussion? No. Okay, very good. That passes unanimously. Thank you all. Any old business we need to deal with, Anne or commissioners or city solicitor?
There's none.
Nope.
Okay, very good, very good. Under new business, we have two hearings this morning, similar but different, as each case is unique and they need to be evaluated and judged that way, as you all know. The purpose of this meeting is to conduct an administrative appeal hearing pursuant to Comprehensive Tree Ordinance, Chapter 253 of the Municipal Code of the City of Rehoboth Beach. Case number 1 has been requested by James and Carol Ellison, owners of the property located at 107 Henlopen Avenue, pursuant to Section 253-12C of the Municipal Code of the City of Rehoboth Beach, and pertains to the removal of one tree located in the city right-of-way. Folks, the way we like to do this is have the appellant, the applicant, speak first, and then Ms. Lingo, the city arborist, will present her report. Then the commissioners, including in this case, and the solicitor, if we have any questions, concerns, comments, we'll make them to either or both parties. And then after that, we'll hear comments from anyone in the public who has signed up, other than the applicants or the representatives. Does that sound good?
Sure.
All right, let's proceed. So do we have James and Carol Ellison, and I guess Jeff Meredith is here as well. Please proceed.
I am Jim Ellison. I assume you can hear me.
Yes,
my wife and I are very good. My wife and I are owners of 107 Henlopen. We've owned the property for 33 years and lived here full time for almost 20. I just want to say we have fully supported the intent of a tree ordinance. In this particular situation, right at our driveway, we have kind of what I would call a collision of trees. And our city arborist, of course, has made a comment that in fact there are several trees right in the immediate area. I just have to say thanks to the tree butchers that are sent in by Delmarva Power to trim trees that are interfering with the overhead power lines. The red oak in question has, frankly, it's been reduced to nothing but a trunk and, a single kind of awkward limb. It is surrounded by these other trees. I know you have photographs in your agenda, but it's a little difficult to really see what's going on. And I asked Jeff Meredith to trim branches on another tree, and at the same time, as long as the crew is coming out, I asked him to pursue taking out this red oak. My wife and I believe that this will really improve the opportunity for the other trees that are right there to be better shaped and trimmed, and we think it will enhance rather than detract from the overall appearance of the area right around our driveway. Again, thank you for allowing me to make this brief statement.
Is there anyone else speaking on behalf of this applicant?
Well, I'm here, Jeff Meredith, but I don't think,
Okay.
I think Jim pretty much said it all.
Very good. Thank you, folks. Liz, the city arborist, would you please present your finding and comments?
Sure. The following is the report of the city arborist with regard to the above referenced request that is to be heard before the commission on July 27th, 2020. The applicant has submitted a request to remove a city tree located along Henlopen Avenue. The tree proposed for removal is a native 10-inch diameter southern red oak. The tree is located near wires and has been utility pruned. There is an American dogwood, loblolly pine, and Norway maple growing in the immediate vicinity. Typical of other properties in the neighborhood, the lot has a significant number of trees and other vegetation. As per City Code, Parks and Shade Tree Commission has authority to permit the removal of these trees. 253-12 Maintenance C. No person shall plant, spray, preserve, prune, remove, cut above ground, or otherwise disturb any tree on any street or municipal-owned property without first receiving permission from the Parks and Shade Tree Commission. Any tree removed from municipal-owned property must be replaced unless otherwise authorized by the Parks and Shade Tree Commission.
Thank you. Before I speak, fellow commissioners, I'd like to yield and allow all of you to speak, anyone who would like to ask questions of either party, the city arborist or the applicant. Please go ahead. Shall I lead off? Okay, let me go ahead then. It's a little confusing because it talks about the application states removal, the estimate by Sussex Tree says deadwood crown cleaning red oak. It wasn't clear, but now it is clear that it truly is a removal, not a cleanup. So that's been clarified for me. There are a lot of, I think most, if not all, the commissioners have actually visited the site, on site, and Mr. Ellison. So I think you can rest assured that we understand what the layout is and what's going on. And I think my own, although I'm willing to entertain a motion from my fellow commissioners before I go on, if you'd like. Does anyone have a motion?
I have a motion. I move that they should be allowed to take the tree down because it's interfering with utility wires and it will constantly be hacked apart till it, is no longer a healthy tree, which it isn't now.
Second.
And it's been seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, can I interrupt just for a moment? And can you check and make sure there's no member of the public that's joined somehow and wants to be heard? Since this is subject to a public hearing, I just want to be sure that nobody's trying to be heard that hasn't been heard.
Okay, hold on a second.
Thanks.
Yeah, am I mistaken, Glenn? But weren't people required to sign up ahead of time, not just pop in?
They are required to, but I'm sensitive to the idea that it's a public hearing. It's a heightened requirement for allowance of public comment. So, regular.
I understand. Sure.
Yeah.
We'll check.
Thanks for accommodating it.
There's no public for this particular case.
Thanks for checking in.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We can proceed. Is there any discussion on this motion, which is seconded to allow removal of the tree? Seeing there's no discussion, I'd like to take a vote. Roll call vote. Commissioner Maldives,
Aye.
Commissioner Cosmodel,
Yes.
Commissioner Macha,
Yes.
and so it is unanimous. Thank you very much for coming in today.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. We're ready to move on to case number 2. Case number 2 has been requested by Lyuba Arias, owner of the property located at 306 Stockley Street, pursuant to section 253-12C of the Municipal Code of the City of Rehoboth Beach, and pertains to the removal of 2 street trees between the sidewalk and curb in the city right-of-way. Please, if you're with us today, Ms. Bartkowski and Mr. and Mrs. the owners of the the pair who owns that property, if you please go ahead and present your case, your application.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
So we own the property since 2009, so that's 11 years, going a little more than that. And in 2016, we made a proposal to the city requesting removal of the 2 pear trees that are in front of our property that were lifting the sidewalk between our property and Stockley Street. And the proposal was denied. 2 years later, in 2018, we sent another letter to Ms. Lingo asking again that the trees be removed. And that time, the city actually replaced our walkway and billed us $1,600 at the time, which we paid because by the time we came back after the summer, the sidewalk was already redone. The tree in 2018 to now, 2 years later, 2.5 years later, began to grow towards the actual city property, which is Stockley Street. You have the photographs, and I could share the screen if you want to, but I think you have it in your files. So at this time, we contracted Sussex Tree Removal Company to help us in putting the proposal to the city, because now it is obviously a hazard for the actual city because all of the big blocks of the cement are being lifted by the tree roots. Now, we inherited those trees. I don't know who planted those trees. They certainly don't belong to us because they are between the sidewalks and the city road. So I think this is now becoming rather urgent, and the Sussex Tree Company agreed to remove the trees, provided we have all the agreement and we figure out who actually owns those trees.
Thank you. Anything else to add?
I think we would like to replace them with within, I think, limits that you post about a year according to your instructions. Some of the trees that we looked at the list of the proposed tree, but we can discuss that later. At the moment, we certainly don't want to put another big tree there, or maybe a shrub, maybe a dogwood or something, or fringe tree, something that you accept as a city ornamental tree that no longer will be a hazard for the city or our sidewalk.
Thank you very much. Anything else?
I think that's about it.
Very good. The city arborist, Ms. Lingo?
Sure. The following is the report of the city arborist with regard to the above reference request is to be heard before the commission on July 27, 2020. The applicant has submitted a request to remove street trees. located between the sidewalk and the curb near 306 Stockley Street. The trees proposed for removal are 2 pear trees approximately 20 inches diameter. They were planted by the developer as part of the Country Club Estates subdivision. Similar to the other rights-of-way in the subdivision, the narrow width does not support the growth of large canopy trees. Also of note, there are no canopy trees in the adjacent property's front yard setback. If permission to remove the trees is granted, I recommend that a building permit to repair the sidewalk and curb is submitted and approved prior to the trees being removed. As per City Code, Parks and Shade Tree Commission has the authority to permit the removal of these trees, 253-12 Maintenance C. No person shall plant, spray, preserve, prune, remove, cut above ground, or otherwise disturb any tree on any street or municipal-owned property without first receiving permission from the Parks and Shade Tree Commission. Any tree removed from municipal-owned property must be replaced unless otherwise authorized by the Parks and Shade Tree Commission.
Thank you. Fellow commissioners or the city solicitor, do any of you have any comments, questions, or motions to propose?
Well, I don't think they need to get a building permit because don't they have to pay to put in the building permit? They already just spent $1,600 a few years ago to fix that sidewalk. I would state that they could take the trees down because number one, they're Bradford pears and they're way past their lifetime. But, and if there's anything damage is done to the sidewalk or the curb, then they would have to repair it. But I don't think they need to get the building permit before because they might not need it and they just spent $1,600 a few years ago.
So how would you like to put that into a, would you like to put that into a motion? It sounds like you're moving towards
I would
that.
make a motion that they can take the trees down. And if there's any damage to the sidewalk or curbing, that they would have to have it fixed.
Before we go to a motion, can we just complete?
And then you're asking for waiver of the building permit fee at this point, correct?
Yes, because, you know,
And
they just spent some money on it and it might not get damaged. It might very well, but I don't think they need to go to the expense to get the building permit and pay the fee if it turns out they don't need it.
I see. Okay.
Eric,
And before we look for a second, before we move on, let's see, is there anyone from the public, Ann, that has signed up to speak outside of the folks we've heard from?
I think before you want to hear from the public, Rachel has her hand up. She'd like to speak.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, Rachel, please go ahead. So
Sorry,
thanks a lot, Ned. We'll get back to that, whether it's a formal motion or not, to be seconded. Thank you.
can you hear me?
Yes, right.
Okay.
Commissioner Matcha, yes.
All right. So clarification, Liz, who owns this property? Is it the resident or is it the city?
So we're talking about the right-of-way. When they developed Country Club Estates, the developer put all these pears in. So it's kind of a no man's land, to be quite honest. The way the code is, if you read our tree code, the city will be responsible for any sidewalk, tree, whatever, if we planted the tree. On the flip side of that, it says the owner is responsible if the owner planted the tree. Then in the zoning code, I believe or maintenance code, property maintenance, it says the property owner is responsible for the sidewalk. So it's just in a gray area, quite frankly.
But the gray area.
So I think,
but
if I may interject, this is Eric Wargotz. I think in terms of what Ned discussed and what we're discussing now, in terms of who pays for it, in terms of the sidewalk or the trees, you know, in terms of all of that matter, that's outside of our realm. We will make a decision, a judgment on the applicant's application on whether to have them removed and replaced, whether to waive a building fee. We can do that.
Well,
In terms of
no.
who pays for it, that needs to be worked out I would suggest through the city arborist and the city.
So on the issue,
City solicitor, do you have any comments on that?
I do, thanks. So on the issue of ownership, it's clearly right-of-way property, so it's city property, so it is on city property. Liz brings up a good point as to whose responsibility it is because it was a developer who planted the trees, not the city technically. there's probably an argument that when we took the right of way from that developer, that we inherited the trees as city trees. That's as far as the sidewalk goes, there is a city code provision that requires the owner to maintain and pay for sidewalk repairs. So that's not something within the commission's authority to decide. And Liz, I think there was one more thing that you kind of raised your hand over. Was it building permit issues?
Yeah, but it's to the best of my knowledge that the Park and Shade Tree Commission cannot waive building permit fees, but there is a possibility, and Glenn, you would know better than me, that I don't think they charge a fee for a sidewalk permit. But keep in mind that the permit application fee is $20. So it's not an exorbitant amount by any means.
Right. So Ned's motion, if it gets seconded, which we probably should move to, contemplates not requiring anything with the sidewalk. That would be a city function anyways. Building and licensing would determine whether sidewalk needed repaired based upon the tree removal, and then that would get worked out within the city. So I don't think the Parks and Shade Tree Commission needs to make any determination as to building fees in connection with sidewalk repairs.
Well,
very good, and it wasn't actually a motion at that point. It's still discussion. It wasn't seconded, so we'll come back to entertain a motion, perhaps once we hear from the public if anyone signed up.
So this is Rachel.
No
Sorry.
one has signed up for public comment.
Thank you, Rachel. Commissioner Matcha, yes.
Sorry, I did have just one other comment. So, I mean, clearly there aren't any utility lines here. I know we're talking about these trees, but there are other trees like this up and down the street. And so I don't really see a concern with the trees themselves. And I thought the sidewalk looked, obviously pretty good. Obviously, we've just had some repair replacement to that in the last couple of years. But other than the homeowner asking to remove the trees, I don't see an issue with the trees. And Liz, can you confirm that?
Sure. So outside of the fact that they are Bradford pears and we would not consider them a desirable tree in our inventory, they have outgrown the space. That being said, their canopy is huge. And I know we had to remove a couple, I think 2 years ago, for a city project where we redid the road, curb, and sidewalk. And safety wise, when you cut all that off, they couldn't stay. And we received quite a bit of public outcry about it. So I think the canopy and shade they provide to the community does need to be taken into account. In terms of repair of the sidewalk and curbing, if you guys have noticed in the last few years within the city, we've done a lot of sidewalk grinding. So it's really inexpensive. It is so much simpler and less interruptive than replacing whole sections of sidewalk. I mean, I want to say it's like $25 to $50 to grind a simple lift. So we've kind of come up with a good system citywide for that, where it's not intrusive or costly if we want to maintain the trees.
Okay, thank you.
Liz,
Thank you.
Liz, how many years do you think they have left on those Bradford pears? Because I think they're ready to go at any time. They're really old.
Well, no arborist will ever give you an answer on that one.
What's the life expectancy of a Bradford pear?
30 years, 50
So they've
years.
probably been there at least 30 years. Probably about 40.
Yeah.
They've been here about 35 years.
Yeah.
And I would say that I'm Jeff Mayer of the Sussex Tree. I would say at this point, we're risking hazard as far as the size of those trees. They have a very weak crotch, and there lies the problem with those trees. In other words, they're weak at their crotches on the tree. They can't stand a heavy weight. And that's where
Thank
we're
you,
at.
Mr. Meredith.
Welcome.
So Ned, would you going back to you first, since you were first to propose, is there something else you would like to propose?
Well,
Formal motion.
I would think I would make a motion that they can take the two trees down, but they have to plant one tree on their property, a substantial tree on their property, not in that right of way, because it's just too narrow and nothing's going to grow without screwing up the sidewalk. And I don't know if there are any big trees on that property. Liz, do you know? I mean, I went by today, but I wasn't paying that much attention. I was just looking at the two Bradford pears.
Yeah, so I provided you guys with a copy of the survey. So to the best of my knowledge, I mean, there's absolutely nothing in the front yard. I'm not quite sure. I didn't walk all the way around to the back since it wasn't really subject, but the pines on the side are technically not on their property.
Actually,
And
Mayor,
yeah.
we have a beautiful.
Okay, so is there a second? So the motion on the floor is to allow them to remove the two Bartlett pear trees and plant a tree that is coordinated with the city arborist that's acceptable on their property, one tree.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Could I modify that just to say a large canopy tree?
Well, we're now in discussion, okay.
Sorry.
Can I just interfere for just a second? We do have a very large Japanese maple in the front yard at the entrance to the house, which has a very large canopy.
Yeah, we understand that, ma'am. You heard the motion. It is not, we're not going to allow it to be planted in the right of way because it's too narrow. So
okay.
The discussion is for the commissioners, but thank you. We'll accept your comment at that point, but we can't engage further at this point. So commissioners, we have a seconded motion. Is there any further discussion among the commissioners or if anything contributory from the city solicitor?
Nothing.
And I'll call a vote. Commissioner Maldiz?
Aye.
Commissioner Kesmadel?
Yes.
Commissioner Macha?
Yes.
So it's unanimous. Thank you very much. Appreciate everyone being here.
Liz, did you get all that? So it's just can we just recap so we're sure we have it? The minutes?
Yeah, we're just, once again, I feel like we're pretty low on details. We didn't determine size at planting or species. So if we wanted to be native.
We're leaving that to be worked out with you, Liz. That's
well, but understand, I can't just randomly impose and tell them it has to be a 3-inch tree. So I need your guys' direction.
Yes, you can. We are providing you that authority. You are the city arborist. You will determine what is best above and beyond what our commission will determine in terms of species and size. So we are granting you that authority through this motion. You can work with the city solicitor if there's any questions further on that matter. Okay? It should come off our list, as we said, that your list is the one that we keep for the city that you work with homeowners and commercial business owners. And in terms of the size, it should follow the routine. If we don't specify otherwise, then it follows what's routine in statute, which is off our list and a comparable tree size. Okay? Are we there? Hello, did I lose you?
No, we're all here.
Oh, okay. So we ready to move on?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, very good. We'll move on to other business. And Ann, I don't think I had an opportunity to email you ahead of time because this came together somewhat over the weekend. But I believe the commission received a ordinance, proposed ordinance from the Law Oversight Committee, which I'll refer to as the LOC, that was presented to the commission a short while ago, and it has to do with a rewrite modification of the basically the tree ordinance, for lack of more specific. And we entertained comments from the commissioners, and I reflected on comments Rachel, Ned, Marcia, and I had made over the past year and a half since I've been on the committee, and some of the problem areas we encountered. And I took those comments that you all gave me, my recollections of issues we all had, and discussed them with the city solicitor, and we put together this draft, which is based on, of course, the draft the LOC gave us, but with edits, deletions, and modifications. And I think it's a much better ordinance in many ways, which I won't go into detail, because ultimately this needs to go back to the city mayor and the city commissioners for their consideration. Hopefully all of you have had a chance to review what I'll call our final draft. And, you know, before we have any discussion, if there is discussion on it, it'd be great to have a formal motion that's seconded so that we can open it for discussion in an effort to move it along, because it is of a timely nature.
Glenn, is a motion allowed if it's not on the agenda?
So this is, go ahead, Eric. Chair.
No, I would, look, she's looking for a legal opinion. I was going to give my unofficial legal opinion in this jurisdiction, but you go ahead.
Well, I think in this instance, if there's not discussion, everybody has seen the draft. So by common consensus, you can move it along, Mr. Chair. But if there's going to be discussion about changes to the document and edits, then that will need to be placed on an agenda for a formal vote. So if everybody's seen,
I understand.
Okay.
Yeah, so if everybody is comfortable with what you've seen over the weekend, I'd like us to entertain a motion. Otherwise, of course, not introduced by the chair, since that it's not illegal. It's just not by convention. So typically, a member other than the chairman would introduce and second motions.
So what motion are you looking for that we approve?
That to forward our. So Ned, what we're looking for is one of you to make a motion to forward the draft ordinance from our committee to the commissioners. Basically, we've taken theirs. They asked for our input. We've made it our own, essentially, with all the changes, and we want to be able to forward that to the mayor and the city commissioners for consideration.
Well, I was amazed that they actually came up with something that I liked. It's simplified at 2 pages. I was very surprised that they came up with something as workable as they did, because I figured it was going to be a mess. So I have to give them credit for what they've done. Seems very fair.
Right. Yeah, so we made some changes which we felt were important for everybody, and of course the mission of the whole reason we have the ordinance and the committee, the commission.
Are we approving the red line version?
Yes, our version, that's correct. We're looking to forward it. The motion should read that we move to forward their draft with our edits to the commission, to the city mayor and city commissioners for their consideration.
Okay, but Glenn has a lot of comments that we have not talked about. Are we just forwarding his comments with this?
Well, those are not really, no, those aren't really his comments. He prepared the document for us based on all of our input, and it's just when you do a red line copy, it puts his initials in. I would prepare a cover letter as chairman of the committee explaining, you know, where this comes from and you know, how it's generated. So.
Well, I'm just looking at his first comment of DBH. Is that an acronym? I think it should be defined because it is. Diameter at rest.
Okay. Right. So that's, again, that's a comment off on the side in the red
Correct.
zone. That's not substantive in the actual ordinance. What I had asked city solicitor before the meeting got started was that the comments in the sidebar may change or may even be eliminated, but the text is where we want it, I believe, as a commission, excuse me, in terms of the actual ordinance, in terms of the meat and potatoes.
So that would be something
And
the commissioners would decide would go into the tree ordinance or be left off.
no, they're going to decide. They're ultimately the ones who decide on a final version of a proposed ordinance, as you know, and then they'll hold a public hearing and comment period, and then they'll make an ultimate decision. We've merely been asked to review a draft submitted to them and offer our comments. And so these are our comments, and in order for them to understand without having to put page by page, we created this red line or strikeout copy. And that column merely seeks to help explain why some of the changes were made, but I fully expect that if they have any questions, I'm not sure those comments are necessary. And again, that's just on the side. If the commissioners have questions, they will refer them to the committee, or just to Glenn as the city solicitor who sits with us, or to me as chairman. You know, I would not be surprised if they, you know, there's follow-up. This whole exercise right now is to decide whether to send our edited copy of that draft ordinance, excuse me, to the mayor's office and the city commission. It's pretty straightforward.
Okay, that's all you're asking for. I move to approve.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? We'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Maldiz made the motion.
Aye.
And I said aye, yes. And then Commissioner Casmadel,
Yes.
Commissioner Macha.
Yes.
Okay, it is unanimous. Thank you very much. And the city solicitor and I will get together and put together a cover letter to the mayor's office and the city commissioners, as well as provide you a Word copy as well as a PDF. And then probably after they receive it in a week or so, we'll forward it to the LOC as well.
Okay, and I also need to have a copy of your draft as a red line for your minute books.
Yes.
I knew that, Ann.
Glenn and I will make sure that happens, okay?
That's
Is
fine.
there any other business for us to entertain at this point, fellow commissioners?
Nope.
Nope.
Then we will adjourn at 11:38 a.m. Thank you very much, everybody.